How's it going, guys? Welcome back to another edition of the Athletes Hub. Today is all about England. Going to be discussing England, the national team, talking about the World Cup qualifying campaign, talk about the chances of the World Cup next year as well, and also other bits as well. So joining me as always to go through that is Mr. Flexx.
Yes. How we going? How we doing?
How do you, Flexx? Good?
Yeah, man, not too bad. Just been a, quite boring week, as we all know. International week, never any fun, but it is what it is.
It's what it is, man. It is what it is. Guys, it's not just me and Flexx today. You have a guest. My good buddy Dylan's joined us on the podcast.
Yes, thank you, Richard. Yeah. All good. How you guys doing?
Yeah, all good, man. All good. And as I mentioned in the intro, today's going to be all about England and the national team. But before we do that, we thought it'd be nice to start with a quick fire quiz. So, how's your knowledge on England,
Dylan? We'll find out, I guess. I'd say pretty terrible, but we'll see how it goes.
But that's not a good sign, is it? It's not a good sign.
No.
Just trying to knowledge a bit. Okay, cool. So, a couple of questions just about the history of the England national team. This will range around players and also past tournaments as well. So, yeah, should be interesting. So, yeah, let's go with the first question.
Yes, but just to note, you've got 5 seconds to answer the question.
Is it multiple choice or is it just
no?
I'll find out. Okay, let's see how it goes.
You've got 5 seconds to show us how good your knowledge is. So yeah.
Right. Okay.
Alrighty. Let's
go.
First
question. So, what is the nickname of the England national team? I think you'll probably know this one.
3 Lions.
Correct. Well done. As you should.
At least I got one on the board.
Second question. Who was the manager during the 2018 World Cup?
My boy Gareth Southgate.
That's it. Another good one. Easy question there. Easy one. Which club did Harry Kane play for before joining Bayern Munich? I think, these are easy questions.
Spurs,
yeah.
Got to start easy. Got to build some confidence.
Yeah, that's it. Which England player has the most international caps?
I actually don't know. I'm going to say Wayne Rooney.
Incorrect. The correct answer is Peter Shilton.
Interesting.
Yes.
I would never have got
that. Which England player won the Golden Boot at the 2018 World Cup?
It's got to be Harry Kane.
That is correct. Well done. In what year did England reach their first European Championship final?
'90.
No, it's actually more. I'll give you another question. It's actually more recent than that.
Oh, is it actually like just the other year?
It was a 2020 Euros. 2020 at Wembley.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Who scouted England's winning penalty? Who scored England's winning penalty against Colombia in the 2018 World Cup shootout?
Eric Dyer.
That is correct. Well done.
Big one.
Who scored England's only goal in the 1966 World Cup final that wasn't scored by Jeff Hurst?
I'm going to go with Charlton just because he's the only other person I think I'd know from that team.
That's incorrect. The correct answer is Martin Peters.
I would not got that.
Yeah. I'm not surprised. That's a tough one. Who's the youngest ever player to score for England? It's my boy.
Your boy. Marcus Rashford?
No. Further back than that, Wayne Rooney.
Is it? That's crazy, actually.
Yeah. Remember, he started at 16 as well. So, and last one, which England goalkeeper saved a crucial penalty against France at Euro 2004?
Must have been David James.
That is correct.
Okay, I didn't do as bad as I thought.
Yeah,
although there were a few easy ones in there. But
yeah, pretty easy. The starts were very easy, to be fair. But yeah, I think the questions going back towards the 60s and past tournaments, they were a bit tricky. But yeah, I think overall, Flexx, he did quite well, to be fair.
Not bad at all. Not bad.
You've done quite well, man. So yeah, next time we'll find some harder questions for you. But yeah, anyway, guys, a nice little quiz to kick off the conversation. So yeah, today's going to be all about England. England with a 2-0 win last night against Serbia. Saka and Eze getting the goals, and they do finish off their qualifying campaign against Albania on Sunday. And again, the World Cup's not far away now. Next summer, the tournament commences. And I don't know, with England, there's almost been a last sort of 6-7 years. There's always been this expectation that England could go into tournaments and win tournaments now. As much as we had great players play for player in the 2000s, it feels like in the recent years, England going to tournaments now with the expectation to win the tournament. Would you guys agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with it. There is a greater expectation just based on the fact that, they've got a very good squad, a very good squad of players. So, there is that belief that we should be able to get to, and win a final, especially, making it to the finals of the Euros as well. So I think it's bubbling. It's bubbling. There's a good feeling around it. But I don't know what it would look like, at the World Cup this time around, with the change of manager and everything.
Yeah. I mean, Dylan, do you think, and what's your thoughts on England's chances next year? A lot of people expect England to go into the tournament next year and get to the semi-final at least. Do you agree with that, or would you say that there's other nations who you put ahead of England in terms of winning the tournament?
Yeah, I think expectations on England is in part the squad's very good, but also in recent history, we've got to like 2 finals. We've done quite well in the World Cup as well. Just recent history would suggest that if we've done well in previous tournaments, that we should be able to also do well in future tournaments. And our squad now is probably better than what we had in those previous tournaments as well. So it does lean to suggest that if football was like linear in a sense that if you just carry on the same progression, you should be able to eventually get over the line. But like knockout competition is just so, like, it's so random. It's so like anything can happen. If we get like France in the last 16 or Brazil or like Argentina, anything can happen. I think expectations would be that of all the teams that can win it, England are one of them, like realistically win it. Like if you were to pick like 5 teams have a chance at England being that mix, it all just sort of depends on players' fitness and Tuchel kind of picking the right team and having the right momentum going into the right stages of the tournament.
Yeah, I know you mentioned about sort of having the best squad, and I mentioned beforehand as well about 2000s England probably they'll call the golden generation, that group of players, and people probably were surprised or even to this day quite shocked of how that group didn't win a major tournament. And Flexx, I know you mentioned before about the change of manager as well. Tuchel's a manager you guys know quite well. Managed Chelsea, was successful there, won the Champions League. Lost the FA Cup final to Leicester, but he won the big one. He won the Champions League. So I think England now. Listen, look at what Gareth Southgate did for the last 7, 8, 9 years with England team was remarkable. Getting to finals, putting that the expectation, and creating that environment where there's now a sense of harmony there. Where perhaps there were better players before, but there wasn't that sense of harmony and togetherness. And Gareth Southgate did that. But when you look at Tuchel now, you look at his history when it comes to tournament football. Are you expecting him to win this time? Because again, they've come close, but as you mentioned, not been able to get over the line. But with Tuchel here now, he's essentially here now to win the tournament. That's what his job is. He's not here to build a team for future tournaments. His, remit now is to kind of win the next one, or if he doesn't win the next one, he's not going to be there no more. And would you guys agree with that? And would you expect from Tuchel as well?
I personally feel like I love Southgate. I thought Southgate was really good for England. Like you said, we were absolutely in the trenches after like Hodgson left, and we got beat by Iceland, wasn't it, in like the last 16 at 1 Euros. We were absolutely in the mud.
Yeah.
And even though like Southgate didn't take us over the line from where we were to where we are now, like I don't think should be like underappreciated or undervalued. I do think the one criticism was, even though he got us to a final or a couple finals, in those really big games, more often than not, he lost. I think the only one that really stands out was like Germany when we played them at Wembley, when Germany are obviously like a massive team and we did manage to get past them. But I feel like we didn't play the big teams until we either got to a final or like Germany in that one instance. And more often than not, when it came to playing Spain or France in the World Cup, we did lose that sort of really big game against a really big team. So I think ultimately he should win, or the goal will be to win. But I think for us to get one over on one of the other really big sides, even if we weren't to win it, just to show that there is some progression there. Because I feel like whenever Southgate came up against those big sides, we didn't really, even though we had a squad to compete, he either didn't really make the right substitutions or didn't have the right type of mentality to start, or we'd go 1-0 up against Italy in the final and then we'd kind of like shrink into our shell a little bit. In those big moments, we weren't able to kind of flex our muscle a bit. And like you say, like Tuchel's been Champions League final twice, won one obviously with Chelsea, lost 3 finals with Chelsea as well. So it's ups and downs. I think he'd want to get to the final, but also I think I just want to see England just have a bit more, just flex their muscle a little bit with the big players in this World Cup and not feel like we played it too safe or didn't really have enough of a go, I think.
Yeah, Flex, do you agree with that? Because Tuchel, I think, the only, like you mentioned with Southgate, the criticism was that we were too safe, particularly in the final against Italy, where he scored early but just sat back for the rest of the game. Do you think that Tuchel's now going to change that mentality going forward?
Yeah, I mean, because he knows how to work his way through tournaments, right? And, for me, I've always looked at it as defenses win you leagues, but attacks win you cup competitions, and it's all about outgunning your opponent at the end of the day, So I feel like he would make those substitutions that would be more offensive as opposed to defensive to get England over the line. But at the same time, I feel that throughout, let's say, friendlies and, unfortunate, like the groups that England end up in, when you keep playing against cream puff teams, how are you going to have the mentality of, kill or be killed when you're playing against the real big teams? I feel like that's always been an issue. If you're, I don't know, if you're playing, I don't know, Slovenia, Serbia, these type, you're expected, to beat these teams. I would expect the under-21s to go out there and beat those teams, So I feel like the friendly format and even the group format needs to change to help nations like England, because how we still have a strong standing to keep getting crap nations to play is beyond me, because we haven't won anything, so it's a bit confusing.
Having said that, though, you mentioned about sort of having the smaller nations, but Dylan mentioned in 2016 England lost to Iceland, right? We got knocked out that tournament. Shouldn't have been knocked out. I mean, it was a poor performance.
Shouldn't.
If you remember, yeah, but if you remember in the recent Euros last year, who was the team? Was it Slovakia who they scored last minute? Bellingham scored and could have been knocked out in that tournament. So these are teams that you're expected to win, but England just about get through, or either they just about get through or they get knocked out.
Do you know why? Because it's your mentality. You expect to beat these teams. So, you're not taking it as serious as you should be taking it. Do you see what I mean? So if you, in my opinion, keep playing against teams that are serious, your mentality shifts, and you consistently take games seriously. But that's just me. That's just my opinion, So, but we'll see. We'll see. Yeah. Tuchel is a no-nonsense manager. I feel the attitude would be very much different to Southgate. It'll be very interesting to see what type of squad he takes out there, because there's a load of players that can do very well in that number 10 position. There's also a load of players that will do very good on the left wing. So it'll be interesting to see what he does there. It'll be interesting to see, does he play a 6, or does he play a double pivot? Like, what's he going to do? It's interesting. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, Dylan, when you look at the squad selection, because there's been a lot of talk about whether the likes of Bellingham, for Foden, or Palmer, can you put all these players into one system? And Tuchel's actually shown earlier this season that he's not afraid to leave out the big players. He left that Bellingham for the last squad. I don't think he played yesterday, did he? Last night against Serbia. So he's not afraid to make, like Flexx said, he's a no-nonsense manager. He's not afraid to make those big decisions. But the question is, and it's been said with Southgate as well, when we went to Euros last year, Foden didn't have a great tournament, probably because he played out wide. But I think England need a manager who's not afraid to leave out the big players in order to accommodate what the team actually needs. So when you look at the likes of Cole Palmer, for Foden, Eze as well, for instance, they can all play in one position, right? So how is he going to how's he going to deal with that next summer?
Yeah, what's he going to do? To your first point, we can put them all together, but we saw it at the last tournament where you're playing Foden on the left, you're playing Bellingham, you're playing Saka, you're playing you're playing all of them, but neither of them they're probably all operating in spaces that they kind of all want to operate in, and they're not quite got certain players in the right positions, and it's more just getting all your best players on the pitch as opposed to having the right balance to actually win more football matches than not. I think Tuchel's more of a manager who probably has stands by his own convictions and won't be afraid to do things that are unpopular. Like, I always remember you get pundits like Neville saying in the last tournament that you just can't not start Phil Foden. And I kind of get that after the season he had, but Foden's also never been that great for England. And I was watching Palmer at Chelsea thinking, why wouldn't Palmer get a look in? And I think, even just what we've seen from Tuchel already, like playing like Morgan Rogers ahead of like Bellingham, he seems like he is a manager who, if he likes a player, he'll play him. And I think we've seen that at Chelsea as well, where he would trust, he goes with players that he trusts. And I think you get that for international managers rather than players who are sort of maybe coveted by the public. I think it's just a difficult one when you've got players like Bellingham and Palmer, who are both number 10s, who are both like excellent.
Yeah.
It's easy to say, oh, you just play one of them and put one of them on the bench, but I almost can't imagine having a first team and having one of like Palmer or Bellingham on the bench. It just seems like mental to have like players who are that good not playing. But also you need a coach to just actually make those tough decisions. And for me, like our best players probably Palmer or Kane. If we can get the best out of Kane by playing a Rashford out left or a Anthony Gordon out left with the pacing behind and then Saka on the other side, then yeah, maybe Palmer does have to sit out, maybe Bellingham does. I wouldn't be one to make that decision, because if we end up doing that and then losing to, I don't know, like Spain or Portugal in like the quarterfinals, you're going to get slated for not playing Bellingham, because like it's Jude Bellingham. He's like Real Madrid's one of their key players. Why would you not play him? So it's sort of a catch-22. But I do think Tuchel will be the one to give it a try. But yeah, it's a tough one.
Yeah, I mean, Flexx, do you agree? Because I know we speak about England a lot, and we speak about even that golden generation trying to fit all these players in the same positions, and it didn't really work. The balance of the team wasn't quite correct. Like, if you're Thomas Tuchel now, and he mentioned Jude Bellingham, is he a guaranteed starter for you, or are you gonna, I guess, like Morgan Rogers, would he play ahead of him? Like, what's your thoughts on Bellingham starting for England?
You know what, right? I think we have to take a leaf from Spain. You know, if we remember their World Cup winning squad and their Euros winning squad, right? And if you look at like the list of players, it was stacked. I mean, Juan Mata couldn't get into the first 11, right? And we all know how good of a player Juan Mata was. Do you see what I mean? So you've got to look at it from the perspective of play the best team, right? And have the others on the bench. You know, there's nothing wrong with being on the bench, coming on, having a cameo and doing what needs to be done. Because at the end of the day, you know, if England go to win a World Cup, everyone gets a medal. So it's not about shoehorning players into the team because of, you know, their status as a player, or because they play at Real Madrid, or because they play at wherever they play. It's about how can we get the best out of certain players. And sometimes it means matching them up with certain other players that are not big names, but improve, you know, I would say key players within the squad. You see what I mean? So we know Kane has to go. He's the captain and he has to start, right? So like you said, who could give, you know, the best to Kane? Who's going to create the most goal scoring opportunities for Harry Kane? You know, then we've got to figure out, all right, back four, it's somewhat picks itself, but who sits in front of that back four to give them the best protection and then a good springboard to start attacks? You know, we've seen him try out things of not Forrest Anderson. You know, we've seen Adam Wharton, we've seen others there. Personally, I don't think it's Rice. I think Rice is great at doing what he does for Arsenal with the box-to-box thing. So who complements Rice out of, you know, that batch of players? Because I've heard people say, well, Bellingham could play and Rice could sit. But that then also, for me, takes away from Bellingham's game, and it's not really how he should be used. And now we're going into the whole shoehorning. And we go back to your point, Richard, where we're just trying to, you know, with the previous golden generation, just trying to get Scholes, Lampard and Gerrard all into the same team, where really one of those guys should have just sat out.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Would have been better for it, you know.
Yeah.
So it's
I mean,
that's how I see it.
You made a point about the Spain team, and this goes back to my next point. We look at that Spain team between 2008 to 2012, right? And I haven't seen an international team like that. Like, they dominated everything, right? But the reason why that Spain team was probably so good, and you mentioned about Juan Mata, for instance, David Silva not getting to the team as much. That Spain team in every single position, right, had probably the best player in the world in that position for that period of time, right? When you look at the England team now, we've mentioned Harry Kane, we mentioned, you know, Bellingham, Foden, etc. Do England still have the best players in their position in the world, if that makes sense? So with Brazil, at one point you had Dida, you had Cafu, best right back, you had Roberto Carlos, best left back, then you had Ronaldinho, Ronaldo, and Rivaldo. With Spain, you had Casillas, you had Puyol, Piqué, you had Jordi Alba, maybe you had Ramos in there as well, Xavi, Iniesta, Busquets, VR, Torres. These players were the best players in the world in their positions, right? Does this current England team have that? Because we look back at the golden generation, you had Rooney, Rooney, Owen, Beckham, Gerrard, Lampard, Hargreaves, Carrick, Ashley Cole, Sol Campbell. These were world-class players. But you look at this team now, right? A lot of the players being called up are playing for like with Tottenham, Newcastle, for instance, Aston Villa. They're still good players, but back in those days, you had players playing at the top clubs in England. Do we still have that? Because Harry Kane, for instance, we're now talking about who's going to give him competition. Back then, you play with two strikers. Now everyone plays with a lone striker. So if Harry Kane doesn't play, who replaces him? Is it Watkins? Is it Ivan Toney, perhaps? Is it Solanke? Like, do we still have a problem in England now where we're struggling to find the best players in the world in their position? Dylan, what do you think?
No. We probably don't have best players in the world in every position, but I think we've got enough like excellent players, like elite players, where we don't need to have the best player in like every position. Like, I think Saka's one of the best like right-sided players in the world. Arguably on the left, you'd say we're a bit more weak with like a Rashford or Gordon situation, but they're still like really excellent players. Like Spain won or beat us in the final a couple of years ago, and although they had like loads of outstanding players, I don't know if they had like, it was quite a young team, and I don't know if they had like necessarily the best players. Obviously, they had like Yamal, etc. But like I can't remember who their number 9 was at the time, and they had to take like Rodrigo off at half time. And I think we've got good enough players whereby it's not an excuse if Tuchel were to not win that, we didn't have, I don't know, the best left back, because it's been a bit of an issue for us. We've got a good enough left back, and we've got a good enough right side and other centre backs that should compensate for that. I think it just goes back to the point of getting the right balance in the team. I think that's the most important thing, as opposed to having what we had before, which is maybe generationally great players, but trying to, like I said, sort of shoehorn them into positions. It is more about the balance and chemistry and making sure that the players who are our truly best players, i.e. Harry Kane or a Saka, are able to have an influence and more of an impact on the game than maybe what they had under Southgate, when things were a bit more trying to fit square pegs into round holes kind of thing.
Yeah, Flexx. I mean, Harry Kane, great player and know what he can do, but in the last Euros, he struggled, right? It wasn't at his best. He looked quite tired in that game, or throughout the whole tournament, actually, and didn't really produce his best, to be fair. Do you think we have an England issue with Harry Kane? Do you think that we need more options in that forward position?
I mean, look, it would be nice, but he's still the best forward option we've got. And I feel at the same time, it just comes down to like what Dylan said, is getting the best out of those key players. Do we need to have world-class players in every position? Absolutely not. I don't think that's important. I think it's about having the key players deliver in every game consistently and having players around them that know their role. I'm here to make you better. So if it means doing extra running so that you don't have to, if it means putting in extra tackles, and if that means, going above and beyond so that when the ball gets to the final third, you do your job, then I'm happy with that. And I think egos need to be set aside in that way, and I think we'll be better for it. Kane is the best striker, I think, right now, probably in Europe. Like, if you're talking about as a complete forward, being able to drop back into like a defensive midfielder's position and spray balls that create chances for goal and all of these different things, he's, for me anyway, number 1. So when we go into tournament football, how do we get the best out of potentially the most deadliest striker in world football in a tournament, and not just with penalties? Did you see what I mean, right? How can we unlock Kane? If Saka, well, we know Saka's surely going to start on the right. How do we, increase his influence, And then we got to figure out this number 10 thing. That for me is the biggest problem. We can't have Foden on the right. We can't have him playing anywhere else. Does it mean he sits on the bench? I don't know. Is he the best 10? I don't know.
Who do you think starts at number 10? Or who would you start at number 10?
I
I'll put Foden there, to be honest, if I could.
I would go Bellingham. See, I would go Bellingham just because of mentality. You know, from what I've seen him do at Dortmund, at Madrid, you know, and even with England, you know, his mentality is a bit unique and a bit different, you know. And then I'll have the Fodens and Palmers to supplement that, you know. If we see he's running out of steam, or, you know, maybe at a push, we could play 2 10s, you know, if maybe we need to chase a game. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. We take off Rice or whoever else is there and put another 10 in and let's go. You know, Eze is pretty impressive as well. It's crazy. We've got options for 10. You know, we just need to find the right one that complements, you know, the rest of the squad, you know. And weirdly enough speaking, with Spain, you tend to find that they go with the squad is based on Madrid and Barca players mostly. So the relationships are already there. Are we saying that maybe we should look at a team that has, or a squad of players that has more of those relationships that are pre-built from club form, you know, which then means maybe the likes of Eze is in the squad and in the team because there's a relationship there with Saka. There's a relationship there with Rice. You know, there's already that dynamic is already built. I don't know. Talk to me. What would you guys
I think there's also a point around, I think Tuchel sort of experimenting a little bit still with the squad. Like Morgan Rogers, I'm sure I've been watching a game last night, just saw the highlights, but I know he's played the number 10 position for the last few games. I'm sure he's done like a great job, which is why he's stayed in that position. I find it hard to see us going to the tournament and him starting ahead of, if he's fit, Cole Palmer and Jude Bellingham. I don't really see it. So almost in my head, almost to your point, Flexx, it should we start going and playing that team that is going to be playing in the States sooner rather than later? Like, do you just play Bellingham now so that he can build that relationship with Saka on the right and whoever on the left and Kane? Because at the end of the day, you don't play in the same league. They don't play often enough. Do we need to? Does Tuchel start needing to put a bit of a placeholder and saying, maybe you're not guaranteed to start, but you're going to be my number 10 when you are fit to play? Or like you say, do we go with maybe getting Eze into the team because he's got that relationship with Rice, got that relationship with Saka, maybe whoever else I can bring in? I don't know. It's a tough one for. I don't think it's a wrong answer, but it's obviously a better answer. It's just can Tuchel get that right?
I agree. There's a better answer, and that's what he gets paid the big bucks for.
Yes, for sure, man. I mean, you're right. I think sometimes it's like, I remember, I think Alan Shearer said this in Euro 96. He wasn't playing really well for England. He didn't score until the tournament itself. But Terry Venables told him that you're going to be my number 9 for that tournament. And it made a massive difference. He went on to have a great tournament. So sometimes you need that. But I think with international football, you don't always have that window to work on these things. Like when you're away for 2 weeks, you play a couple of games that don't mean anything. And I think that's why with the friendlies or the games happening now, we know what Harry Kane can do. So him being called up, you know, we talk about a lot of players playing too many games now, and it's like by calling up Harry Kane now when the tournament's next summer, it's like we know what the guy can do. Give him a bit of a rest. Try somebody else, for instance. Maybe call back Ivan Toney. Maybe we spoke about Danny Welbeck Flexx a couple of weeks ago on about his chance of getting an England call up. He deserves it. I feel like I know he's not going to start in the tournament, but you feel like his great form deserves a chance to maybe revive his England career. So certain players like Harry Kane, we know what they can do. So I wouldn't necessarily start them now in these World Cup qualifiers or these friendlies because he needs to be fresh for the tournament, because we've spoken about him being fatigued during tournaments as well. So I do agree. I think it would be good for Tuchel to experiment. I don't think he will. I think he's quite regimented in what he wants to do. I think he knows what his best team will be when everyone's fit. I don't think he'll change too much from that. And with tournament football, sometimes you don't need to play well. Sometimes you just need to get results. You need to get through stages. And again, Southgate last year was very lucky because he spoke about Slovakia and how they almost went out, right? But sometimes you need a bit of luck. And your big players like Bellingham, as you mentioned, he stepped up when he mattered and he scored the equaliser, and England went on to win that game. But with tournament football, sometimes as much as England have very good players and sometimes you've got a great team, you just need something to go your way. And England just haven't had that for 20 years. You know, sometimes a penalty shootout, sometimes players get sent off and they shouldn't, or stuff doesn't happen. But I mean, this World Cup coming up, if you were to make a prediction of where England should finish in the tournament, like what's your prediction? Are they going to win it? Are they going to get semi-finals, the final? Like, what's your prediction?
If you were to ask me the same thing about Chelsea, I'm a Chelsea fan. I'm always going to say, even if it's prediction, that we're going to win it, just because I'd rather put the energy that we're going to win into the world as opposed to not. So I'll say that England will win it, like I've said for the last 7 or 8 tournaments, and we obviously haven't won anything.
Come close, though. Come close.
Yeah, exactly. And we're as capable as winning it as any other team. So there's no reason why we shouldn't. At the end of the day, like these things, like you just said, Richard, like I always go back to like Pep Guardiola's pretty universally like the best manager in sort of like the last 10, 15 years, like definitely since Fergie retired. He's won a Champions League like 3 times. He's probably had like 12 goes. He's had like excellent teams like most of those times as well, if not like the best teams, like this Barcelona team. Like sometimes in football, even with the best manager and best teams, things just don't go quite your way on the day. I do think Southgate's failings were maybe not like a luck thing. I think in that final against Italy, I think if we played that final 10 times, we're probably going to lose most of those times just because of the way in which he set up and the decisions he was going to make. And same thing against Spain.
If you look at the Italy final, though, we're talking about him losing on the penalty shootout. Italy dominated the second half, but they didn't. You know, it was a tournament where
we also like went 1-0 up in like the first 5 minutes and set ourselves up to really put ourselves in the advantage, playing at home as well, like playing in Wembley to go and win that game. And I think we gave up those advantages.
But remember as well that Italy team,
maybe a bigger team wouldn't.
Yeah, that Italy team on an unbeaten run, remember, and they were not hard to beat. They're a very good team. So he probably just thought, we're ahead in this game really early. Let's just be good. But the thing is, Southgate never changed his approach, though. Southgate never, because it's like people were trying to say that when he got to the final, he was negative. But Southgate was always negative. He was always conservative. Sure. He didn't change.
Yeah, I think that works pretty well in tournaments. I think that's why he was that way. It obviously gave him loads of success. But it's just more, I think luck's a thing, but also you make your own luck. And I think Southgate did a great job, but it's just that final step quite clearly didn't have whatever it took to get us over the line. And hopefully if Tuchel can get the same sort of level of luck, quote unquote, or make his own luck, I'd like to think he'd be able to be that difference maker in the final, just whether or not he can get the players together, have the same sort of camaraderie and belief amongst the squad that Southgate had. But then when those big games come, he can maybe instill a bit more belief in them to actually beat that big team and beat Spain in the final, or beat Brazil or Argentina in the final. I don't think Southgate really instilled enough in the players. He did enough to get them there, but not enough to really just kick that final ball and get that final penalty in.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I'll say before Flexx, I mean, sometimes we talk about camaraderie and environment, and Southgate was the master at doing that. He got it together. I think he united the whole nation. And years gone by, England, there was always a division between the players, the fans, and the media, right? But he really brought that together. But this idea that if they all loved each other, they would win more, the previous generation, I don't think that's true. Sometimes you just got to win tournaments. You just win games, and you don't have to like each other to play well, to win tournaments, right? Again, there's a lot of factors that go into winning football tournaments.
Sure.
The Brazil team in 2002 were an amazing team, but again, apart from the Spain team in that window, I don't remember too many other national teams really dominating opponents like how they did. So I think Southgate did as well as he could. And again, with tournaments, you haven't got to go and blow teams away. You've just got to get through every round, right? But yeah, Flexx, I mean, do you agree with what Dennis said? Do you think it comes down to just, is it a tactical thing? Is it bringing everyone together? Like, if you were to kind of give us one factor as to what England can do to win the tournament next year, what would that be?
Well, it's not going to matter because Ghana's going to win the tournament. So
hopefully,
it don't matter.
Either England or Ghana, I'll be happy either way. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I hope it's England so we get another bank holiday or something, right? But for sure, if there's one thing they can do, and this is more from a coaching perspective, is just improve on decision making, knowing when to make the substitutions to impact the game, you know, knowing when to be offensive and knowing when to see the game out. Sometimes I feel like, you know, in previous tournaments under Southgate, he went defensive way too soon. you know, and we see it even just in football. You know, you see teams, they go 1-0 up and then they think they can defend for 65, 70 minutes and then they end up losing the game. You know, I feel like if they just, you know, adjust when they become ultra defensive and when they adjust becoming that free-flowing attacking team, I think then we'll see, you know, results turn, you know.
Good stuff. I agree, guys. I agree. Hopefully, fingers crossed, either England or Ghana can win the World Cup next year. Fingers crossed.
Who do you think's going to win, Richard?
What, the World Cup?
Yeah.
I'm going to join it. I want to say England are going to win it. I think this is our time now. I think England will win it. I think Ghana will get to semi-final, though. We'll get to semi-final.
Hey, how about we just have a England Ghana final? How about that? Where would you be, Richard?
What would I be? I'll be 50-50, bro. I'm 50-50. I'll be happy to go away. Do you know what? Somebody asked me and I was like, listen, if England won it, amazing. But if for an African team to win the World Cup, but that would be spectacular. And I remember 2010, almost getting semi-final and obviously the penalty miss. So if an African team won the World Cup, that would be amazing, man. But yeah, if that happened, England versus Ghana, I'm going 50-50, man. I'll be happy either way. I'm sitting on the fence. What about you, Flexx? Who are you going to go for?
I'll go Ghana all day. Ghana all day. Yes, sir. Because it'll just be game changing for football, you know. But that's what it is.
Yeah, that's true. Very true, man. But guys, it's been a great conversation today. As always, everyone, when you're watching, subscribe to us on YouTube. Again, follow us on TikTok, Instagram, and also X as well. We've still got more content coming your way. And let us know in the comments, guys. What do you think about England's chances in the World Cup next year? Do you agree with Harry Kane being the sole striker? You know, what's your thoughts on Thomas Tuchel as a manager? And yeah, Dylan, it's been a pleasure to have you on today. Thanks for joining us. And Flexx, I'll see you next week.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it. See ya.
Take care, man.